Okay. We left off last time the mitzvah Vashtayim v'shivim umeya, which is the mitzvah of Elov Tishmon, l'shmoa mikol novi shir b'chol dor v'dor im lo yosef v'lo yigra. And the Rambam, in his reference to Rabbi Yeshua, Rabbi Yeshua Nogid, refers to this mitzvah as the mitzvahs of the 6 mitzvahs, she'ef she'yaseh oisam, ha'odam b'chayav, v'ef she'shlo yaseh oisam. So, l'chayr, what it means is there's no hechrach that someone will hear in the nevuah. But the assumption is that there are no Nevi'im floating around, and maybe he will hear, maybe he won't hear. If he does hear a nevuah, and the nevuah commands him to do something, so the Navi, then there's a mitzvah. But the problem over here is the basic assumption is that there are Nevi'im floating around. And I'm not getting involved with the Gemara, but the Ram himself internally is a problem, because the Ram says at the end of Shiur Daled, which is the beginning, the Hakdama to Minyan HaMitzvos, v'yadua gam kein shen nevuah v'amelucha kvar nistalku imenu ad shenoseh minu avonos she'anachnu masikim ben v'yichaper lonu v'yachmenu. So it means because of avonos, there is no melucha and there's no nevuah. And it's going to be in the future. The nevuah in Yoel that's where the Ram says is discussing Hachzor's nevuah, at least the way he interprets it over here. So the Ram says, then follows the Pisum Minyonim or Elu, Kulam, Eitzeroy Vanoshim, Paul Mitzvah Aseh, Lois Aseh, well, it's an Aseh or Lois Aseh, Shitetuya Bekobonis, Oiba Avoidos, over Mrs. Bezdin, any mitzvah which has to do with any of these categories is not Noibes Manazek. There's no base of Mikdash, no Kobonis and Avoida. Mrs. Bezdin, Obis and Hedges, no Sanhedrin. There's no, and there's no mikdash to sit next to in order to, and also to have Mrs. Bezdin. O benovi o melech, o benovi o melech, anything that depends on novi or melech, novi melech, o melchemes mitzvah, or melchemes rishus, lo itztach shoyim bo v'zeis mitzvah. So the Ram seems to be nevuah is only b'fnei habayis. So that's a direct stira. It's between what he says here. It's an amazing thing that you should put this mitzvah inside. It's beyond my interpretation. So even if there is nevuah, that it's far from being a mitzvah which though we're obligated to do, because even if the Novi gives nevuah, there may not be tzibuyim what we should do. I don't know. Now, next mitzvah. Chamesh V'shivim umeya, 175. This is a mitzvah lintois achrei rabim im tieh machlokes ben haSanhedrin bedinin. The machlokes Sanhedrin, we say ach rab lahatis, and the mitzvah is to go after rab. So the way it's formed in Akotzer, it becomes very odd because there's no Sanhedrin today, and there's no reason in the world the Rambam should discuss it now. And especially, we just quoted the Rambam in the Minyan, in the Akdama to Minyan HaMitzvos, that Sanhedrin depends upon Elef B'nei Abayis. So how does the Rambam put this mitzvah in the mitzvah Chechiyos? So the answer is simple. Because you look at me in our mitzvahs, in mitzvah Kuf Ayin Hey, the Rambam says like this. The Rambam says, "V'chein nimshach v'nota b'din proti gam kein b'din Reuven and Shimon." It's not only a din you go after over Sanhedrin, but an individual bezdin which sits down in a machlekes between Reuven and Shimon. Derech Moshe shetiba machlekes bein dainei irom, in the Dayonim in that particular city. In Reuven hu chayiv oy in Shimon hu chayiv oy Reuven. Nimshach acharei, we go after it. And l'cheira, since this mitzvah is noeg bizman hazeh, the din of Acher Rab Lahates, as far as Dayonim, doesn't necessarily need smuchim, which is very interesting. You see, we don't even know there's such a bezdin of Hediotes. You know, there's an issue of Shlichusayu, but in Shlichusayu, it's an Acher Rab Lahates Shlichusayu. You have to understand what this is exactly. So, had this, you could have ended here, but I want to discuss something which I think is perplexing, to say the least, and maybe we'll come to some idea of what's happening here. You see, the Gemara says in Chulin that Achrei Rab Lahates is a keveya of a realia of how you deal with Sveikis in Kol Dine Atera, or Kol Inyonim. The Gemara Chulin, Yud Aleph and Aleph, Meno Honilsa Diomo Abonon Zil Bosaruba. How did this that the Rabbanan said, Zil Bosaruba, how do we know it? The Gemara Menolon, Tichsiv Acher Rab Lahates. So the Gemara says, Ruba Disa Goan, Kamoi Teisha Chanuyos, Misanhedrin, Lo Komi Boyelo. And the Gemara wants to know Ruba Lesakam. The Gemara says the same way that you have a loiv in Sanhedrin, you have a loiv in the Tisha Chanuyos. You have 10, let's say you have 10 Chanuyos, 10 stores. One sells Nevela, and the other 9 sells Treifa. I mean, the other side is kosher. So if it's Polish meat from one of them, we don't know which one, we say called the Polish, move the Polish. Or, as we said a while back ago, I think maybe it was 2 weeks ago, about 2 weeks ago, but it was last week, I don't remember. The Sifri in Zeis HaBrocha, Moina Elokei Kedem, Shleish Sforim Nimsu Bazora, Echod Shel Moinim, V'Echod Shel Hi. The Echod Nikro Sefer Datuim, V'Echod Ksiv Ma'on Elokei Kedem, U'B'Shnayim Ksiv Ma'on Elokei Kedem. Bidlo Chachomim Eso Echod, V'Kimo Ashnayim. And in fact, even further, Rashi in Chulin, the second day, Yud Beis Amud Aleph, Diva Maskal Pesach. Rashi says, Inami Achirav Lahatois Mashmo Bein Ubedisa Kamon, Bein Ubedlesa Kamon. The Maishno High Me High. So Rashi is ready to say that Achirav Lahatois he implies the Ubedlesa Kamon. When meat may as it is, it could be this way, it could be that way. That's irrelevant. But you see, once you say this, it's like if you look at the Tshuva of Yeshua Nogid, not mistaken, yeah, he says those mitzvahs require ear is kufayin hey. So that means the mitzvah of Achirav Lahatos. So I asked myself a question, the din of Holch Acharoiv, if the boss of the Velo, you don't necessarily need other people around for all the dinim of Roiv. No. So, I mean, I don't know what big question it is, but why does it be Shua Nogid require ear for this mitzvah? So I like to suggest something, I don't know how big a kasha, I don't know if we have to, we have to answer questions that'll be Shua Nogid, I don't know. But I'll point out something else. The mitzvah of Achirav Na'ates, the Ram quotes in the Prati mitzvahs in Hilchos Sanhedrin. So you get the impression this mitzvah is in Sanhedrin or in Dayanim. So what's going on? The Gemara Chulin. If I would have had the Gemara Chulin or the Sifri, I'd say this mitzvah, it doesn't require ear. So what I'm wondering, I'm not sure exactly what it means in terms of how to can it, but maybe it's possible that the mitzvah is only in Dayanim, or it's only in Dayanim, but we derive from this that there's a din deraisa, the kaveya mitzias with Achirabim, but to apply the Achirabim, I'm not sure if there's a mitzvah, it just might be a din. See, when Sanhedrin in the minyan, and Yeholach HaCharoiv, according to the Rambam, there's a kiyum deraisa. The question is, when you kaveya mitzias or Yeholach HaCharoiv, is there a mitzvah or it's just a din? That's what I'm wondering about. See, if you're prepared to say that it's only a din and not a mitzvah, so then you understand Yeshua Nogid that the mitzvah itself requires ear. That's a suggestion. I think it's also a very interesting question, whether every time you make a decision based on Reiv, are you becoming mitzvah deraisa? The Ram doesn't discuss as in terms of a mitzvah, in terms of the kiyum or the pasuk in general, he may quote the din Elohim in different places, but the mitzvah is in Sanhedrin. I'm not sure how much raya that is, because remember we have by Simchas Yontif the Ika mitzvah is mentioned in Chagiga, but there certainly is a mitzvah in Hilchos Yontif also. So I'm not sure what this all means. I'm not even sure if there's a mitzvah here, because even if it's not the Ika mitzvah, if you remember, we have by Simchas Yontif, and which the mitzvah, which is not the Ika mitzvah, which is Noeg B'zman Hazeh, is enough for it to be Noeg B'zman Hazeh. So I'm not sure where we stand, but if you're ready to accept that the din of Achirav Lahates is the Lahates means Lahatev of Dayonim, and everything else is just the din, so maybe you can understand why this mitzvah requires Dayonim. It's only really the answer for Bishua Nogid. In Ram, we have no hechach more the other. Next mitzvah. Arba u'shmonim u'meya. That's the mitzvah l'aseh ma'ikeh. And Rabbi Shua Nogid says these are the mitzvahs that totally the fact that he lives in a house. So, l'cheira is another question you could ask. The Rambam in Hilchos Reisech Shmiras HaNefesh, with the Shmiras HaNefesh part, in Perek Yud Aleph Halacha Daled, says Echad Agag, v'echad kol dover sheish bo sakona, v'roi sheikosher bo odom, v'yomus gon she'oisa lebe'er, o bo b'chatzeroi, בין שיש בוהן מים, בין שאין בהם מים, חייב לעשייס, לא הן חויה, גבוי עשרות טבוחים, או לעשייס לא כיסוי, כדי שלא ייפול בו אודם ויומוס. וכן כל מכשול, שיש בו סכנת נפשות. מצוות עשה, לא אסירוי, ולשומע ממנו, ולהיזויה בדובר יופי יופי. שנאמר, ישומע לכו ושמור נפשך. ואם לא יסיר והניח מכשולס המביא לידי סכנה, פתאום מתססה ועובר על לא יסוסם דום בספר. לא יסוסם דום. So you could say that there's no hechach, there should be mikshol b'chal, and when a person lives in a bayis, there's a certain hechach that'll have a micah, because every bayis normally has a gag. So the even though there's an option that the bayis might not be govoy asot fochem from itself, the Ram says it's not chayv micah in that case. But the normal case is the roof of the house is asot fochem roof v'sharab, and you're chayv in a micah. And he could have mentioned Michsholis, but Michsholis, there's no reason that they exist. So Mela, it's much better to go with bias, and assuming there's a person lives like a normal person lives in the house. Here is a very interesting problem. Yeah. If you look at the mitzvah of Micah, yeah. 1, 4. Yeah. So here in Sefer HaMitzvos is okay. I see which is Davino l'sala kamokshim v'amicholis mikol mishchuneseinu v'u nivne kleisel makiv sov v'agagois v'sov v'aboyres v'ashichin v'amora v'domeim yeshripo anoifo mehen oy bohen o mehen chema koimes sakona kulon boinim mesaknin oisom kedei limnoya sakona v'hu amar yis'ala v'sisa Michael legager. So meaning a mitzvahs, is everything's okay. Everything's go under this. But Mishnah Torah, he has a different pasuk. And this pasuk is an amazing thing because this pasuk is in volume Dalit pasuk test. And this pasuk is not said legabe Mirshal. It was said legabe Shikchas Mayim Har Sinai. Raki shomer l'cho shmo nafshecho pen tishkach es advorim asher ro einecho. And according to the Ramban, there's a separate mitzvah, meaning a mitzvahs of Shichas Mayim Har Sinai in Lavim. Shichas Alavim Beis, a mitzvah shnir, shenimnanu, shelo nishkach Mayim Har Sinai. Ulei nosi oisei midaitenu. Avo yiyu einenu, v'libeinu, shom kol ayomim, v'hu amo yis'aleh, yishomer l'cho, Ushmo nafshecho mi'oi pentishcha dvom asher ro einech. So the use of this pasuk for michsholos is very Mishnah. In Sefer HaMitzvos is okay. Micah goes on everything, but in Mishnah Torah we decide that there's a different source for stam michsholos, and this pasuk is an amazing thing to use it. So the Goin in Biulai, he suggests, he points to a Gemara in Brachos as a source for this. Gemara Brachos Naman Alva Beis, Tono Abona Mais B'Chosid Echod, Shoi Mispala Baderech, For Hagmoin, Echod, V'Nosa Lo Yisholem, V'Lo Yichsa Lo Yisholem. Hintin Lo Yitzin Tfilosa, La'acha Shesin Tfilosa, Omo Lo Yireka, V'Hu Kosu B'Teraschem, Raki Shomer L'Cho Shmo Nafshecho, Uksiv Nishmatim Yodim Nafshei Seichem. So he quotes this pasuk. Kishenasati L'Chosholem, Loma Lo Yechzati L'Shom, the Hagmon is this question. Imo Yisi Chote Choshcha B'Sayiv, Mi Hoye Toives Domecho, Domoch Midi. So what the Goin says, they can bring a raya that you should be afraid, you should keep away from all michsholos, when the Hagmon Otgalam, the Torah. And that's the Pshat and Rambam in Votzech Shmiras HaNefesh. No. So whatever it is, it's certainly not Posh Pshat. Rambam's mitzvah say, I'm very confused exactly. In Minyan HaMitzvos is okay, and everything. And for our purpose, it doesn't make a difference because there's no hechach. There's going to be michsholos. The michshol bias in God is a hechach because he lives in a normal person lives in a normal house with a God. Next mitzvah. Mitzvah achomesh v'tishim u'meir. This is the mitzvah litain stop. And Rabbi Shua Nogit puts this mitzvah 195, and the mitzvahs depend upon living in a city. It means not necessarily a city, but living among people, not a hermit. See, here again, you see something very important. And that is that we're not only talking about being obligated in the mitzvahs, but if you're obligated and you can't be mekayim it, that's not good enough. And tzedakah, you're obligated tzedakah wherever you are. But if there's no one to give it to, you're not mekayim the mitzvah. So you have to be in a city where you're around people, you're on a neem, that you can give it to them. And it clearly means that if you're mafresh tzedakah, you say sell, sell a zulat tzedakah, and you put it in the tzedakah box, there's no kiyum mitzvah, because the kiyum mitzvah is that the owner gets it. So that's why the Shua Nogit says that the mitzvah tzedakah requires living in an ear where you're exposed to an ear. Or it doesn't mean that's an ear, but not a life as a hermit where you're completely shielded from other people. The Rambam also says, so it means mitzvah tzedakah again requires nesina la'oni b'mitzias, and therefore you acquire ear for the kiyum mitzvah. And the mitzvah tzedakah is the mitzvah echrechis, as the Ram says in Lukas Matzanim, Perek Zayin Halacha Hey, Ula'olam lo yimna atzmoi mishlish hashekel b'shono, v'chol hanoisei hochos mizeh lo kiyem mitzvah, v'afilu onen mispanis min tzedakah chayiv litein l'tzedakah tzedakah le'achir. That's a very important thing. That's the chiddush. Even oni, the mitzvah tzedakah is to give to another person. And even if the person's oni, he can't say, take the money, oh, I'm an oni, give it to myself. No, he has to give it so. The person he gives to can give him other tzedakah back, but that's really relevant to us now. Next mitzvah. Hasheva v'tishim umeya, 197. This is the mitzvah of the halvos la'oni. So you understand yourself, as the Bishua Nogli, this mitzvah depends upon a person gal be'ir, because if he's not around people, he may not see an oni to be malva to. So again, ear requires for the kiyum mitzvah. The mitzvah of the chalvas la'oni l'chayr yimuchuyiv, but you have to see an oni. You have to have an oni in order to mekayim the mitzvah. Next mitzvah, hashesh umosayim. Here we'll see something interesting, I think. This is the mitzvah of the after reach kamoicha. Lahov ko odom mi b'nei bris. This mitzvah also, Rabbi Shua Nogid puts in the mitzvahs that depend upon ear. Now, the question is, in the mitzvah of the after Kamoicha, I'm sitting in my house, and I, in my heart, feel brotherly love for Bnei Israel. I'm not in a city. I'm a hermit. And l'chayra, the mitzvah after Kamoicha, as we saw in Shirish Test, the mitzvah is midas. So what do I need the interaction with someone? Yeah, you need physical contact to have this physical contact, or to have a real person in front of you in order to experience this mitzvah of the after. And I was sitting in my house and I love all Jews. And I think about how much I love Jews. That's not enough. So if it means, as the Ram talks about in Hilchos Ovel, in Perek Yudalid, not mistaken, that the Haftarach Moicha is Malbish Harumim and excuse me, Kreve Mesim, Bikocholim, Achnosis Kala, Achnosis Ochim. So there, the Pula, the Ram says, they're the Rabbonon, but the whole idea is B'chal Mitzvah Afterach Kamoicha. So I thought the Pula is only B'chal Mitzvah, the Ika Mitzvah is the Midas, as the Ram says in Shurish Tes. If the Ika Mitzvah is Midas, you have to, in order to have the Mita and the feeling of the Regesh, or whatever it is, to the character trait of feeling to the Zulas, that requires ear. See, it's interesting because when it came to the mitzvah Lachta B'Drachav, the Rambam didn't say the Rishua Noga didn't say you have to be an ear, and that I understand because it's only a mitzvah of walking in the ways of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the midas. You don't require the people around, but after Kamoicha is only if you interact with others. So then it becomes a little confusing. Do I have to do something or not do something? If you do have to do something, then you're going back to the Ram Perek Yudalid, which is not the Ika Mitzvah. I don't know. And if you don't have to do anything, to just being around, just to radiate feeling of love without having a person in front of you is not the Kima Mitzvah. You have a person in front of you and you feel love to him, or you want for him what you'd want for yourself. Then there is a mitzvah. So this I thought was a very interesting question. I'm not sure how much to take away from it because the whole thing is basically Shua Nogid. The say depends on the year. But the interesting thing is you should differentiate between the mitzvah of Lachta B'Drachav and After Kamoicha, which both are midas, but one mitzvah requires some interaction with people, and the other, a hermit can be Mekayim, which is very interesting. Here is the same thing, the next mitzvah. Hasheva u'Mosayim. It's the mitzvah Lavas Ager. And this also requires ear, because Lavas Ager, you can't say, you're sitting in your house and you love Gerim, which it's not to someone who you know intimately or somewhat. The Kiyum mitzvah is only if you interact with the person, I assume. Dude, I'm not sure anything what happens. I mean, let's say I'm a hermit, okay? And someone comes over to me and says, there's an Oni in the far village over there. You want to give him a loan? And I give him money. So So I'm kind of mitzvah. Da be'ir doesn't mean da he lives in a city, but he's interconnected in some network that connects him to other people. That's what I would assume. Okay, next. Next mitzvah. Hashmone umosayim. This also found very interesting. The tzaddik moznaim im mishkolis. To have proper weights. Okay. And over here also, Rabbi Shua Nogit says that this mitzvah depends upon a person who interacts in a business manner with other people. He's noisy in my brios. What does it mean? That even though the mitzvah is asiyas mishkolis, proper mishkolis, as the Raman Hilchos Geneva says in Perek Ches Aloch Aleph, mitzvah say that tzaddik hamoznayim v'mishkolis v'amidos yofu ledaktek b'cheshbon b'shas asiyasa, to make them proper. Shenema moiznei tzedek, amnei tzedek, efa tzedek v'hin tzedek yelochem. And there's also an inyan to mekayim midos nechaynos. As the Ram says in Perek Ches Aloch Yud Ches Hilchos Geneva. So, what does it mean exactly? If I have midos and mishkolos in my house and I never plan to do business, there's no mitzvah. The mitzvah is that the midos and mishkolos that I plan to do business with, they have to be proper. But if I'm not living in a town, obviously, if I'm not living excuse me, if I don't plan to do business, or I don't do business, so the mitzvah is irrelevant to me. The fact that midos mishkolos is tam a weight in my house, but it should be a weight for merchandise to buy and sell, and that's the mitzvah. Next, mitzvah hatesha umasayim lechabeit chachomim. So Rabbi Shua Nogit says this mitzvah requires dal be'ir because you're not in contact with chachomim. The mitzvah lechabeit them is all you're in contact with them. So that's what comes out. And if you sit in your house and you say how great the Chachmei Yisrael are, you're sitting on your house, you're sitting in the hermitage, and you're not involved with anyone, there's no mitzvah. Now, the next mitzvah is Aseh umosayim. That's the mitzvah of l'chabed oveim. Rabbi Shua Nogit says, this is one of the 6 mitzvahs, she'ef she'hodam lasses b'chayev v'ef she'lo yaseh oisam. So the chayra, if he's in contact with his father and his mother, I would assume that he's obligated the mitzvah. So he's efshel because he's a yosem, and maybe he never saw his father and mother. That's what we're talking about. And he's a yosem for both father and mother. But if you accept that, in the midst of kibbut aveim, there's mechavder b'chaybo, b'chayim, mechavder le'achamoisai. So l'chayr, I would assume, the mitzvah is also on a yasser. But on the other hand, the mechavder b'moisai is we heard a shmuel mipiv, and you say over the shmuel mipiv. Then you heard mipiv. As the Rambam says in Perek Vav, Hilchos Mamrim, halacha hey, b'chayev l'chabdoi afil li'achamoisai, keitzer hoyoyme dva shmuel mipiv, hoyoyme dva shmuel mipiv, lo yoyme kach oma abba, Elohim kach oma abba mori, ani kapos mishkova. And then he says, after Yud Beis Chodesh, zichron l'chayil l'habo. That's l'chabdoi li'achamoisai. But I guess if he didn't hear any shmuel mipiv, or maybe on his mother, there's no din, it's only a shmuel chesnit, so maybe it doesn't apply. So maybe there's no hech. The awesome we're talking about, there's no hech because he may not have heard anything. I don't know. That is this. Next mitzvah. Hashtei Mesrei Umosayim, which is the mitzvah of Yira Me'ov Ve'em. So this also mitzvah, the Rabbi Yeshua Nogis, the 6 mitzvahs, She'ef She'yasa Yisrael Odom B'chayev, V'ef Shelo Yasa Yisrael. So he also going to say is Yasa B'shnei Horov. But however, Rabbi Yisai, there's also Yira L'Achamoisai. As the Rambam says, it was Mamim Perek Vav Halacha Gimel, Ezo Moira, Moira Shel Oim Mekoimoi, V'lo Yikol Loi B'shmo, Loi B'chayev, Loi Acham B'moisai. So after his father's dead, he shouldn't call. He was Yasam. He shouldn't call. Shouldn't refer to his father by his first name. Elohim Abba Mori. What it means, maybe he can't say Abba Mori if he never met him. Yeah, you have to understand what exactly happens over here. So, but on the it's clear over here, according to Yeshua Nogid, that there is this mitzvah of the Yira Me'ov Ve'em. You would have assumed if a person was brought up in his parents' house, Lo Yeshiv Makoimoi, and Lo Yistel Dvorov, it's a daily occurrence that the mitzvah applies. But if you say it's a yosem, no. And then you have to ask, is a yosem the mitzvah of Machabdoi or the Lira, Ledira Achamoisai? Does it apply? In what situations apply? Abba Mori. And maybe Ara Yosem who never met his father. Maybe the whole thing wouldn't apply. You say, you have to know. Next mitzvah. Vashtem Esrei Umasayim. 2:12. Liflois V'lirbois. The mitzvah preview. So this mitzvah, the Rabbi Shua Nogit says, depends upon excuse me, 1 second. No. Sorry. Uma she'omer v'yivolvu lo bonim k'dei she'yischai b'shtei mitzvahs. Reishid Beis, which is our mitzvah, and we'll see later the mitzvah of Milah. So here, as far as this mitzvah is concerned, bonim means a boy and a girl in order to mekayim the mitzvah preview. And what we're talking about is not the chiyuv, but the kiyum. Now here, as you'd expect, it says B'zeis HaMitzvah, Ein Hanoshim Chayovas Bo. And that's a Mishnah in Yevomis. Peg Vov, Mishnah Vov, Voish Mitzvah Priya V'Ribya, Avalo Isha. And the Ram Paskins like the Tanakamo. And Hilchos Ishas. That's the way he paskins. That's very good. Now, I must admit, I'm very confused. To this point, okay, I had my problems. Okay. Hashloish Esrei Umosayim, which is the mitzvah of Kiddushin, whether it's Limol B'Kiddushin or whatever it is, we went over this in the Minyan HaMitzvos, or the Mishnah Torah, whatever. Okay, the mitzvah Kiddushin, Kiddushin plus the Sulim, whatever. See here, if you look at the Rambam, he doesn't have a disclaimer over here. After the mitzvah Kiddushin, the women are not chayiv in this mitzvah. And we count up the mitzvahs and the 14 mitzvahs, which noshim up to us. If you're going to count this, you're going to end up with 15. So what does that mean? Does that mean the Ram is saying that women are chayiv in Kiddushin? What does that mean? We know the Mishnah says Ish Mekadesh. So L'chayr means that even the Ma'aseh mitzvah, the man does, the woman is part of the mitzvah, she's also chayiv. And L'chayr, with the Rotzoin to Makabel of the Kesef Kedushin, she's Makayim a mitzvah, which is an amazing thing. If I would have asked me, I would have said the mitzvah Kedushin is on the man. Preview is on the man. Kedushin is on both. That's the chol that comes out over here. It's an amazing thing. The Rambam, by omission, there's a commission that women are chayiv in this mitzvah. Or you could say in a different way that since the mitzvah is meaningful, because a woman's not allowed to live with a man without Kedushin, So in Mela, she's also chayav in the mitzvah, whichever you want to take it. Or the same way you can imagine the women might be chmuyiv in gerushin, even though the megarish is the ish, but the woman can't move on in life and have another husband or live with someone else unless she has a get. And maybe she's muchayiv the mitzvah. You have to think about this maybe in Yibum. See, chalitza is a little better because in chalitza the woman does the ma'aseh mitzvah. Maybe. But this is an amazing thing. Look at the Rambam and think about it yourself. Does the Rambam say that a woman is chayav in kedusha? So I'll explain to you. I was always mesupik about this. You know, when there's a Sida Kedushin and there's a Brei Piagofen, okay, good. And there's a then there's a Birchas Kedushin, okay? Birchas Erisin. So the woman has to drink from the cup. Of course, that's the way the minig. I don't know if she has to, but that's what they do. Okay. So in the Brei Piagofen, she has to be to the Brei Piagofen on the Masad Kedushin. So does she answer Omen after the biggest Kedushin? If the mitzvah has nothing to do with her, she definitely shouldn't answer Omen because the problem of Hefsek. To break Piagofen. But if she's Mechuy in the mitzvah Kedushin, she can answer Omen, there's no problem. Unless you tell me that the mitzvah brachas or in the ma'aseh mitzvah, even if she has a mitzvah, the bracha was a sacrifice. I'm not sure exactly, but you know, you begin to think about things. In other words, I always thought as a double portion, the women were mechayiv in the mitzvah, but the Ram L'chera in the double portion is just the exact opposite. Next mitzvah. See here. This is the mitzvah of Sameach Chosen es Ishtoi. So this mitzvah depends upon, as the one Yeshua Nogid's list of a man marrying a woman. And as that's Kiddush is also b'chal that. Riv is also b'chal that. But here, it's very clear in Rambam. The Rambam is Zeus miuchedes b'scharim, who means the mitzvah of the Sameach on Chosen, the Sameach Ishtoi. The mitzvah is only on the Chosen. The woman is not mechuyev to Sameach her husband. And she's potter. And the mitzvah is on the Baal to B'samech Ishtoi. It is no mitzvah for the woman to be B'simcha. So the mitzvah is only on the Ish. That's what he says. It's Chalem. Next mitzvah. Mitzvah HaChomesh Esrei Umosayim, which is the mitzvah of Milah. And we sure notice this mitzvah of Milah depends upon the fact that he has children. And here, as far as this mitzvah, he has to have a son. And this mitzvah, he says, "V'hu gam kein miuchedes v'scholim," and that is the Gemara Kedusha Chav Tesem and Aleph, that the mother's potter lomo is beno. Now, the Ram continues the last thing of the siyum of the mitzvah Aseh in his boilecho kimi elu ashishi mitzvahs achrechios yesh mehen sheish v'arboim mitzvos she'anosh chayoves bohem. Gam kein. V'arba esrei mitzvos mehen she'ein anosh chayoves bohem. There's 14 lepota and 46 that the chayiv v'yasim be'elu hashishim mitzvah chechios shishim heimo malchus. V'yasim when the fall arba esrei mehen min anoshim oslas yad yudal. Oh yes, b'chiyuv hashesh v'arboim mitzvos anoshim gam at b'dam brisecho. Kloima shemisma b'dam, which is 46, uchayva alein anoshim. V'heim habris hamuchuyeves anoshim behechach. And this is the bris which noshim are chayev to behechach. So this, v'zeh masherinu lilmois oisoi b'misvah mitzvah. So here I can understand this. Because you look at the pasuk, this pasuk is blush in the keva. This I understand a little bit. The at bedam brisecha, and Vayikol Rabbu says in Parsha Vav Siman Hey that the kavanah of the Korah is for creases bris of Hasina Shmiyus HaMitzvos. So the at bedam brisecha, or your dam brisecha, your chiyuv mitzvos is the minion of bedam. And then I understand. That's the bris of Hasina is the bris of chiyuv mitzvos, and that's the bris of the chiyuv noshim. So that I understand very clearly. The rest of this and the minyanim and the schil, unless they used to have like mnemonic devices to remember minyanim. Okay, beyond that I can't do anything here. So in Mitz Hashem, we'll start B'Shem Havaya Keil Oilom, which was in the Parsha which we read on Shabbos, that the Kriya from Avrom, B'Shem Havaya Keil Oilom, which he says in Perek Aleph, was Avodah Zarah Locha Gimel, that this was Avram reaching the apex of his Kriya to the Umas Oilom. And you see more the Vuchim, all the Yisraelis, so many of the Yisraelis Amuna in this, that Havaya is Keil Oilom, and that there's Hashkocha, and that there was Bria, whatever. And the Rambam felt that it's necessary to understand or to have this Ikra Das in mind before you start any work which has any ramification halacha. I assume he has in Pirush Mishnayos in front of the Sitchis Stolim here, and in Moran Nevuchim and Mishnah Torah, all the Yudalit Stolim. Shows Bizrecha to have to be influenced by this Kriya B'Shem Havaya Keil Oilom. The Mitzvah Hashem next week will pick up the Mitzvahs Lois Aseh.